Hi, please kindly subscribe to this channel, One Forum News, for the best analysis in politics, crime, as well as security. The Battle of Supremacy over Africa, USA, China, and Russia. Who will take control? The US Vice President Kamala Harris arrived in Ghana on Sunday, March 26, 2023, and made a promise that the United States will increase investment in Africa and help with economic growth. This is a big news for Africa. She began a week tour in Africa from Ghana and will be in Tanzania and Zambia. The tour, as some of us can observe, is aimed at offering a counter to the influence of rival China and to some extent Russia that is making ground in Africa. It is no news, as we all know, that China has invested heavily in Africa in recent decades, including in infrastructure and resource development, while Russian influence has also grown, including through the deployment of troops from Russia's private military contractor, Wagner Group, to aid government in several countries, including Mali and Burkina Faso. For some time now, France has also been kicked out of Africa, to be specific, Guinea, Mali, as well as Burkina Faso. And the recent one is Burkina Faso, where they gave ultimatum to France's soldiers to leave the country, which is very serious because over the years, France seems to be the hegemon of Africa. That is, they are very influential in Africa. But these days, a lot is changing. Most African countries that were colonized by France are fighting so hard to do away with French soldiers or the influence of French, and also to embrace Russia. And a lot of soldiers from Russia are working so hard in most African countries just to fight insurgents and all manner of crimes around Africa. Well, China's influence in Africa has also touched almost all the 54 countries in Africa. And as I said earlier, Russia is also seen as a friend of Africa for so long, since the Soviet Union era. And somewhere in August, Vladimir Putin will be in a BRICS summit in South Africa, which is something very controversial because they've issued an arrest warrant, that is ICC have issued an arrest warrant for Putin to be arrested. And South Africa, being a member of the ICC, is obliged by the law or the rules of ICC to arrest Putin when he gets to South Africa. But the news on the run is a lot of people in South Africa, that's the citizens of South Africa, including the EFF, that's a political party led by Julius Malema, they're insisting that Putin needs to come to South Africa for the summit, that's the BRICS summit. And they are ready to protect Putin from the airport to the summit and everything that he wants to do in South Africa. They are ready to protect him for him to have a successful stay in South Africa, and nobody is going to arrest him. But until then, let's see what happens when Putin visits South Africa for the BRICS summit. One significant thing also is Russia had recently cancelled the debts of African countries in excess of $20 billion. This is a huge debt cancellation for Africa. And what are they supposed to use this money for? And I think this is to help African countries, that is the continent of Africa, to overcome poverty, which is also a great news for Africa. And something that will help Africa also to gear or move towards Russia when it comes to partnering Western or European countries or well-to-do countries or superpowers. Even since the Ukraine war, that is when the Ukraine war started, somewhere in February last year, Russia became closer to Africa, as seen in how he receives African leaders and giving cold receptions to the Western leaders. Frankly, we shouldn't forget that somewhere in 1970s and 1980s, Vladimir Putin was in Africa, specifically Tanzania, to help train freedom fighters. So his personal burden on Africa started way back. And I'm sure most African countries are grateful to him for a lot of things that he did for them through the struggle for freedom, or Russia or Soviet Union to be specific, what they did for most African countries during the time of struggle for freedom from colonial masters. So they are not ungrateful, they are a bit grateful, and they are in love with Russia, and a lot is happening. They are doing a lot of dealings with Russia, and Russia is making grounding in Africa. In fact, on the other hand, in December 2022, ahead of a US-African summit, The US also committed $55 billion to the continent over the next 3 years. And the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, announced about $150 million in new humanitarian aid for African Sahel region during a visit to Niger. This is also a big win for Africa because it's Africa that is benefiting. Whether it's from Russia, from China, or from USA, it's Africa that is benefiting. And as an observer, it seems Africa has become a new bride looking for suitors, or suitors rushing in to please her. This will play to the advantage of Africa, as everybody can see. But critically looking at it, what exactly is Africa doing good? That is why all these three countries, the superpowers, are struggling or battling to take supremacy over Africa. But the question is, how ready is Africa to seize these opportunities? Because these are great opportunities for Africa also to stand on, to develop or to progress. But it seems, as usual, they are just looking at what a lot of things are going on. And the three major countries or superpowers are battling of supremacy over Africa. It is also obvious that Africa is having something great that they themselves are not recognizing, or they are recognizing, but because of bad leadership or governance, it's making it very difficult for Africa to rise and to see exactly what is happening. Because countries like China, USA, and Russia will not spend those huge monies on Africa for fun. Definitely, there is something great in Africa. However, until some miracles happen and dependency theory skewed in favor of Africa, Africa remains that attractive suitor that the three superpowers are battling over for supremacy. But well, please, for more analysis on politics, crime, and security, kindly subscribe to this channel, One Forum News for the best. Thank you so much.